Yo, what's up guys? Nadem here with another tutorial. Today I'm going to show you guys how to make a quick, dirty, really cool electro bass line that you can use in your house or electro productions. And I'm going to be doing tutorials every week. So drop a comment below. Let me know what you guys want to see in an upcoming tutorial. And I might use your suggestion for the next video. So without further ado, let's jump right into it and I'm going to show you what I'm working with. Alright, so here we are. We're going to be using Massive for this one. And I just have a basic kick and snare, 128 BPM. Now with Massive, I'm going to be going through a variety of things. And the reason why I use Massive is because it just has a very smooth and rich sound. So just follow along and I'll explain things step by step. Firstly, I'm going to add a daft filter. I really like the daft filter. And we'll put a resonance of maybe around 6 or 7. Next thing, we're going to be routing oscillator 1 and 2 to filter 1. Go ahead and go to the voicing section, and we're going to switch this to monophonic, and we'll leave these settings. Of course, we can play around with these in the future. Next thing, we'll turn on the EQ, but we won't make any adjustments yet. Turn on feedback, put on filter 1, same with noise. And let's see how this sounds. Let's turn down the time. We won't add any time just yet. No slurring. So we're going to introduce some noise. And some feedback. And of course we can add more because this is just a little bit of kind of minimum values that we're going to tweak afterwards. Now we need some sub. So for sub, you really have to do trial and error, but I really like sine square. Sine square is nice because when you play around with that wavetable knob, you're going through from sine to square. So as you need more harmonics in your sub bass, you can drag it up and you're going to get a more grittier, thicker bass. Or if you want a cleaner bass, then you would keep it more to the left. I'm going to bring this down to -24. So -24 at a setting of 3. We'll bring this one to -12. And let's go ahead to the envelope. We'll bring the attack all the way down, 0. And we can play around with the level. I mean, you can leave the level at 100, but gives kind of like a nice fluidity dynamic if you have a slight adjustment. You don't have to go like that, but we'll just put it at like maybe 97. The magic in Massive is really with the phase modulation because the phase adds a whole lot of character. It can totally manipulate the sound. So really this is the beautiful section and probably the most craziest section that I go to and I experiment a lot with. One thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of a pitch modulation of 1 octave. And we're going to use envelope 1. And we want it to be a fast pluck. So this would take forever. We want it to be very fast. So we're going to put a setting of like 3 or 4. Okay. Now it sounds really terrible right now. And you can see that phase modulation was putting in work. It's pretty cool. Let's add some high shelf EQ. So it's cool. We have a grungy sound. We have a sub underneath it, mono. Now let's add some sidechain. We're going to keep it very basic for this tutorial. I'm going to add 2 instances of kickstart. Maurice West talked about this, how he likes to keep it simple. And the reason why I have 2 on here, one is for the main effect, for that nice pump. The other one is for just to mitigate and allow space for the punch of the kick. That's why I'm doing this. You don't have to do this, and you can experiment, but always experiment with sidechain. Less is more. Sometimes too much sidechain is not good. We're keeping it basic for the sake of this tutorial. So let's just make a basic MIDI. All right. We can also add the pitch automation on the modulation oscillator, because if you don't, it can sometimes create a conflict. You definitely want to make sure if you're doing pitch automations or LFOs that it's done equally parallel, because if not, it can add too much blurring going on with your sound. So just kind of a side note. We will introduce oscillator 3 once we kind of have a baseline of like what we like. So it sounds pretty lackluster. We're gonna have to keep experimenting. We just added oscillator 3. We're gonna see what we can do with oscillator 3. And we're gonna see if we can add some effects to really manipulate the sound, make it less hollow, less brittle, less thin, and have more meat to it. And we're probably gonna experiment with bit crush. Hard clipper is also good. Sine shaper and parabolic shaper is really experimental. Test it out, see what you can do. And the feedback is definitely you can drive more mid-range. If your sound is maybe lacking some beef, some body, definitely the feedback is something you want to experiment with. But we don't want to be driving these when the sound itself is like, it just sounds like ass, right? So let's keep experimenting. We'll come back to that. I like this. The additive synths, the additive wavetables sound pretty nice at times. So I like the way this is sounding. We have the saw. We'll add some nice kind of high end to it through bit crush and introduce the dry wet. If it's too much, you can, of course, I like to just crank it all the way up, see where I can hear it, back it down. So we'll do that. depending on what you're doing, bass, lead, pad, sometimes a seventh. So what I mean by seventh is instead of 12 semi-octaves, a seventh like that. Sometimes I can add cool harmony. Other times it doesn't work. And it really just depends on the project and what's going on. It might work here, but we're going to have to just keep trying out. I'm not really a big fan of what's going on with the shapers. So let's see. Again, the reason why we're adding resonance to the filter is because when you add a filter, you lose some high end. So you need to introduce some resonance to compensate. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, I thought this in the past too, like, why should I add a filter? Should I just not do it? Like, am I killing high end? But you're actually going to create more clarity doing that. Getting in the habit of putting like a filter, turn up the resonance a bit, and then you're going to have a cleaner sound ultimately. So it's a good practice to do that, and it gives you flexibility because then you could always low pass. So now we'll just create a new pattern. Let's see if we can just give it a bit more character. This MIDI, we're gonna make it 4 bars long. Ooh, that's 3 bars. I'm gonna make it 4 bars long. It's probably gonna sound stupid, but can't know without trying. So we have something going on. Now with FL, in this pitch section, we're going to automate that. We're going to put that at 12. We're going to create an automation clip. We're going to go to oscillator section in massive, bring it up to 12. This is dictating the range that it can go up and down. We want it to be able to go up 1 octave, down 1 octave, because we're going to experiment with some pitch modulation outside of those pitch envelopes that we did already. And I'm thinking maybe go down at the end. So I'm going to copy this value. Maybe like a quick curve and then back to normal. default, sounds have this on in massive, this number 1 for vibrato, which we don't need. I mean, I like to do vibrato on leads, but not really, I don't really do it on bass. So it's okay. It's kind of got some Water Junkyard vibes, but one thing we can do to spice this up is give an envelope so that the sound animates more. It has more movement. So we'll see. Now that we have something going on, we can automate the low pass filter. So when we automate the low pass filter, we basically get like a pluck, you know, and of course you can do wobbles here, you can do whatever with the LFOs. There's a lot of power, but we're just going to make a kind of a bassy pluck. Two things we can do: either put the insert effects before or after, or we can try to automate the crush and the dry wet. We're going to try doing that, automate the crush and the dry wet, to see what happens. Seems like this sound is so harsh that the big crush might be too much. So be careful of that. When you drive stuff so much, you're gonna have to make sure you're not driving it so loud. We're gonna bring up the sound of the percussion with my good old sausage. so the very classic modern talking digital hybrid wavetable. We'll just leave it there, and we want to give it some sort of automation. I want to give it kind of like a little bit of a talking. So we'll use number 5, but we're gonna use a either an LFO. Or sometimes I like the performer. The performer is very easy if you haven't used the performer. The performer goes one way, unlike the LFO, and the performer. I hit mono, and I hit load curve. So when you hit load curve, you can decide, do I want it to make it, sudden? Do I want it more linear? And so here I'm going to do something like this. I'm going to find a spot that I like in the modern talking. I'm going to turn off the rest. So we'll just leave it there, and we'll say it there. So it's going to start basically from there and go to 0. Sounds pretty cool. Obviously, it's being driven a lot, and we're going to have to look at it from an EQ perspective. What do we want to add? From here, you could add some more saturation, some EQ. What do you want to do? Do you want to do more dimension expanding? Dimension expander is a great way of widening your sound if it's too narrow. So I kind of like the way this is. Comment below. Let me know what you guys think of this sound, and I'll put a download link where you guys will be able to download this. I'll put the project as well. But nonetheless, that's pretty much a wrap. This pretty much a wrap. I like the way this sounds, and this was just to give you guys an idea of just playing around. And the way I've played around here is, it's always different, and you can get some cool results like this. It has some body, it has some good harshness. Obviously, it's not amazing by any means, but it does get you started, and it does put you on the just thrusts you forward and gets you started well on your projects with a lot of ease and a lot of cool stuff. Now, if you want to experiment more with this sound, you could experiment more with the phase modulation, maybe more phase. I usually don't like to modulate the phase. Another thing you could do is detuning your saws. You could detune your waves, the sine square, detuning them slightly can sometimes widen the sound, but it can sometimes blur it. It's just really trial and error. Another thing that's really good is, of course, if you pitch up your notes, use the time, use the slur. That gives a gradual change up and down and makes it more smooth. Portamento is definitely used. Sliding is used by so many people. And some other tips I'd say would definitely be experimenting with what you can also add in the insert 2. I mean, maybe you could add a hard clipper. You can also add the delay. The delay kind of is an offset. So instead of the note playing right on the quantized note, it would offset it slightly. Think about it as kind of like a cheat groove, if you will. So that's pretty much a wrap. Let me know what you guys think. Remember to drop a like, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next week with another tutorial. And drop all your can't even talk. Drop all your suggestions in the comment section, and I'll see you guys soon. Stay subscribed. Take it easy.